Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So we'll be creating this interactive keyboard using variables. So you'll be needing few things. One of such is this keyboard. So you can go to your browser, right? Jump to your browser and search for Figma community. You can see here we have figma.com/community, right? So search for this, then you search for the word keyboard here. Right, so search for keyboard. You can take any keyboard of your choice. Right, so I think the one I used was this. I used this keyboard. So pick any keyboard you love to use and you jump back into Figma. Right, so you pull the master component out to use um, for this process. All right, so after getting your keyboard, we'll be jumping straight to our variable. We're having it right here. So to activate this, make sure you're not clicking on anything on your screen. Right, don't click on any word because you won't find that. Click outside, like on your blank canvas, just somewhere outside anywhere. Then you'll be seeing the word variables. So we toggle on this to activate this. Right, so you can push this down like so. Right, so I'm going to be clicking on create. Now for this interaction we are doing, I'm going to be using string. So I'll click on string. Right, so I'll name the string. I'll just call it name, right, because I'm working with name here. And then the value, let's call the value what is written here, right here. That's the value we have in here. Right, so this is all I'm doing here. So I'll cancel this. So I'm going to be clicking on the word right here. I'll go inside of my button. So I'm clicking on the word right here. Then on my text layer at the top here, you see this icon. It says apply variable. So I'll click on apply variable to connect it to the variable we created earlier, which is this. It says name right here. So we connect it to this to that variable we've created. Right, so that's what we're doing. Up next, we are jumping into our keyboard to create the interaction. Right, so I'm going to be clicking on the Q, the first letter. So I'll go inside of this. So I'm clicking on the Q. Now I'm switching to prototype tab. So I'll click on prototype. I'll click on this plus for interaction. Right, so let me move things to the side a little. Alright, so the trigger is going to be when I click on this Q. So on click, my action is to set conditional. Alright, this set conditional. Right, so I'm going to write a basic logic. Right, so I'm going to say if name equals to, I'm going to write to apostrophe like so. So that's how you write, like that's what you use for string in Figma. For string, anything string variable, you need to open like a double quotation. So if it's equals to right here, right, so let's just say right here, then I'm going to add an action. So my action will be, I'll set a variable for the action. My action will be name. Let name now equals to Q. Again, you open your string and then you're going to be writing Q. That's that. Else, I'm going to be adding another variable here. I'm going to add another variable and say else set variable. So I'm going to be targeting name, then the value also name plus open quotation again Q. Right, so that's what we are doing here. So you can follow this process. You can take your time to follow this, right? And that's what we're doing for every other thing, right? So I'm going to go to W. So instead of actually doing that same logic over and over again, so the best way to do this is to right click this to copy this, then come to W, right click on W, paste here to replace. So it's going to turn to Q, obviously. I'll go inside of this and change this to W. Right, so I'm going to be clicking outside again like so. So I can see the logic on W, right? So I'm just changing few things here. But for instance, the saying is equals to Q, but not Q anymore. So the value for this is going to be W. All right, and also for the else statement, I'm going to be clicking there and changing Q to W. Right, so I'm going to be doing that for all of the letters here. Right, so I'm just going to speed this up. Alright guys, so I've copy paste all the variables to the other letters on the keyboard. Right, so I'm just going to switch back to design here to test if this is working. So I'll just switch to asset here and pull out this instance to check if this is actually working. So I'm going to preview, click on that. You can switch here and come to preview to see if this works. I'm typing, beautiful, perfect. So this works good, right? So but I want to do something different, right? I actually also noticed something. This is not saying first name, so I'm going to change that. Fuck this up. All right. All right. So I'd like to do something different. Yeah. I want it that when I click on this input, this keyboard here moves in from under. Okay, so to do that, I want to like move things to be more clean. I'm going to put this keyboard component in a frame. And just put in a frame like this. Right. I just need this frame keyboard. So this is just to make things, to keep things clean. Right, so I'm pushing this out and I'll start interaction. I'm going to click on this and then move to prototype. So on that prototype, I want to set the interaction. I'll click on plus. So the trigger will be when I tap on this. I want the action to be open overlay. Right, so the overlay I want to open is this now. Alright, so I'll look for this keyboard. Right, so that's the keyboard here. So it is, the position is going to be manual. So we have different positions here. So but I'm going to be using manual for this process, and I want this thing to be activated when I click outside of the frame. I want the button to close. All right, so since it's manual, I want to move things down to where keyboard usually stay, somewhere under here. Perfect. All right, so the animation now to use is move in, like I said. So it's going to be moving in from down up. I'll leave the easing to be ease out and then duration to 300 milliseconds. So let's see what we have. So if I prototype this, if I click on this keyboard now on the input, so we have our keyboard sliding in. Perfect. So you like to ask that, oh, what if you want to have like other inputs, last name, password, and all of those? All right, I'm going to do one more example to keep things clear. Switch back to design. I'm going to duplicate this, the first name. All right, I can do Ctrl D for that and move this down, and then I'll call this last name. So for the last name, we need to create a mode for that, so we can switch between those things. So we won't be using just only one keyboard again. So one keyboard will be for first name, the other keyboard will be for last name. So I'm going to duplicate a keyboard down for last name. I'm going to switch to variables. So under variable now, I want to create one more mode. I'll click on plus and call this one last name. So the same value right here. Okay. So I'm going to be jumping now to prototype. So under my prototype, this is connected to the first one. So I want to make sure this is not connected to this. So I'll push this to be connected to this one. Alright, so I want to move my keyboard up a little bit. So I don't want to do anything about this interaction because it's the same setting. Remember, we duplicated. We have the same setting basically. Right, so I'll cancel this, right, and then set this thing to their mode, this keyboard and this input. I'm going to switch to design. Remember, in Figma, once you create a mode, you have this this mode, this icon for mode. So I'm going to click on this icon and make this into last name. I'll click on this one too, go to appearance, click on this mode icon, and also make this into last name. Alright, so I'm going to test things out to see if that works. So when I click on this and type, when I click out, the keyboard should go down. When I click on this, keyboard should come up, and I should be able to like write my stuff too. Alright, so that's how this works. Right, I hope you actually enjoyed this and it was easy to follow. If this is easy to follow, please consider smashing the subscribe button, sharing this video so somebody can help, and liking the video. If you have any question, just drop it down in the comments section below. I'm going to attend to the questions. I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.